On January the 27th, a mass demonstration filled Trafalgar Square to protest against a government bill that aimed to shut down raves and parties.
More acid house parties means more aggravation for local communities.
And in that crowd were two faces. Henry Samuel, otherwise known as Seal, and Adam Tinley, otherwise known as Adamski, who would soon make their very first appearances on Top of the Pops.
I'd always wanted to be on Top of the Pops since I was a little kid. This is my first ever school book. This is how obsessed I've always been with pop music and pop culture. Richard, who's one of my older brothers, Richard and me watching Top of the Pops. It's actually upside down, but that is Richard and me watching Top of the Pops. Over the summer of '89, I did my very first gig as Adamski. I was playing at Sunrise 5000 at Santa Pod, a massive rave, on the strength of this big following that I'd amassed.
And now here comes debut performance number 3. Would you welcome, please, first time on Top of the Pops at number 12, Adamski and Energy, over there.
NRG it was like my clarion call, it was the riff of Energy. That kind of got people's attention. I had this number plate with my name on it because basically I was playing all over the place and no one ever could ever get my name right. It was a bit like Rumpelstiltskin. And people used to go, "Are you Adamski?" And they kept just getting it wrong. I remember we had a dancer, and he was my flatmate. He's called Daddy Chester. A Rasta guy jumping, and he's in the Energy one. But the Top of the Pops people insisted that I had these girls that looked like, you know, Legs and Co. And it was just ruined for me because I had to have these, like, girls with like tinsel tied around their trainers and stuff, and I was just really pissed off. I then started to see Seal at this club called Solaris on a Sunday night in London. It was my favourite club at the time.
In a drug-infused stupor, we both found ourselves in the wee small hours of the morning. We were sitting there. That was the first time we really talked.
And then I was like, "Yeah, I love your voice."
One of us said, "Listen, shall we get together? We've always talked about working together. Shall we get together and do something?"
And he came down the studio and I just said, "Just have a go, try something out."
Now, I went down to the studio with no expectation. He was in there and he played me this instrumental called The Killer. Now, I'd written this terrible pastiche of a Led Zeppelin song some years before when I was getting my shit together. And I went, "So you want to be free," and it was this kind of, it was going nowhere. Anyway, and it was called Killer. For some reason, I'd called it Killer. So instinctively, I just, you know, he played me this instrumental that went bum 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 bum. So instinctively I sang over, "So you are bum 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 to be free." Live your life the way you wanna be. Will you give? It was the first kind of house track that had an actual song, the sentiment that actually spoke to you. You had this kind of post-depression kind of Thatcherism where people just wanted to express because they felt that they'd kind of been repressed for so long. On Top of the Pops, I was understanding this concept in the very early stages of my career of having to connect. That is what I am there for. It is to find you and connect with you. We were on the road up in the north of England somewhere, and we were at some kind of roadside cafe.
Vote for 8. Yeah.
And we were listening to the countdown on the radio on a Sunday. None of us were actually saying anything to each other. We were just sort of eating and trying not to kind of pay attention, but obviously deeply engrossed in the countdown. There were 2 records that they hadn't called. You know, by that point, we weren't eating anything. We were just kind of sitting there, like stoic. And they said, and in at this week's number 2.
Dirty Cash, The Adventures of Stevie V.
At that point, I literally jumped up and I went, yes! In the radio. They thought it was a madman. And I remember running to the bathroom. I locked the door in the bathroom. And I just sat there and started crying. Having gone through the whole of my youth, it just kind of been programmed and made to believe that I was never going to amount to anything and that I was a waste of time and that I was just going to end up in trouble. What was it like when it went to number 1? It was validation.
Britain's brand new number 1, that is Adamski featuring the great voice of Seal on vocals there, and that's called Killer.